All right. Excited for this panel. This is our biopharma panel, and we have an amazing collection of industry professionals that are coming to join us and talk about their personal experiences, as well as impart some wisdom to all of you about the work that they do. So just to get started, I'm going to ask them to just kind of go down to a quick introduction of their name and their company, as well as their hometown, and we'll go from there. So, Yolanda, you want to start us off?
Yes. Hi, I'm happy to be here. I'm Yolanda Johnson. I work with UCB Incorporated. We're a Belgium-based company. My hometown is Irvington, New Jersey. But I'm back and forth between Atlanta and Jersey, North Jersey most of the time. So pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Hello, good to be back up here again. Dwayne Clark, General Manager for Rare Disease at Sanofi. Let's see, I live in Boston, but I'm originally from the thriving metropolis, population 3,000 people of Independence, Kentucky.
Independence, Kentucky. Hi, everybody. My name is Jordan Hugh. I'm not from Independence, Kentucky. I grew up in St. Louis originally. I live in Boston as well. And so I work for Alexion Pharmaceuticals. We're the rare disease unit of AstraZeneca. I've been in Boston about 10 years. I am not having as much fun in the weather right now as Rich is, I think, though.
Miami is a cool place to live. It really is.
Yeah.
But my wife and I actually share a home outside of Chicago, and I work there. She's actually taking care of her parents, so she spends a great deal of time there. Rich Daly, President and CEO of Catalyst Pharmaceuticals. We're a rare disease company located in Miami.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. To get started, these are all college student athletes. So when you were in college, what did you think your career would look like? And did you nail it or no? Rich, you want to start?
No, absolutely not. I'm a microbiology major, and my joke, we'd go out and we'd meet people and they'd say, what's your major? And all of my friends would say, I'm pre-law, I'm pre-med, and my joke was I'm pre-unemployment. So there's nothing that I can do with this. So I actually wandered quite a bit. I was a bartender. I taught high school. I was a sports coach at a Division I level. And then when I met my wife, I was like, I think I need to get serious. So I actually went into the pharma business.
I think similar to Rich, the short answer for me is no. I don't think that I nailed it. Whenever I was in your guys' stage in life, I thought that I had made it, to be perfectly honest with you. I was 21 years old. I was working from St. Louis, so I was working for Anheuser-Busch. And when you're 21 years old and you work for Anheuser-Busch, you get 3 free cases of beer a month. And I'll be honest, I thought that was it. I didn't think it could get any better for me. My degree was in finance and accounting, and so I went out of school into a leadership program with General Electric. I moved around about 10 years or so, took several different roles in different industries, and then about 7 years ago, I moved over into pharma. And so for me, I would say it was an incredibly non-linear path, and that's probably the biggest thing that changed from my perspective whenever I was your guys' age. I thought that it was one of those, you pick a lane, you execute, and then everything's going to take care of itself. It wasn't quite that simple. It wasn't quite that expected, and for me, it was very much a non-linear experience.
Let's see, for me, I graduated from the University of Kentucky, and I was pre-rich. That was my major. I wanted to make a lot of money, but I was blessed. I walked out and my first job was in sales in the pharmaceutical world. And I realized that, man, I like this. Just for what we talked about this morning, because you're trying to help, you're trying to educate, you're trying to impact somebody's life. And from there, 40 years later, I'm still in the same industry, and have not regretted that decision from day one. So absolutely blessed that I had the opportunity to do this.
So no, I didn't wasn't be able to fortune tell this for myself. I actually went to Temple University studying radio, television, and film. And so I thought I was going to be a sportscaster. And I enjoyed sports. I enjoyed storytelling. I enjoyed all of the energy. So I feel that I'm a little far off, but at the same time, where I'm supposed to be, because that same impact that I have with working as an HR associate director, I still get to work with high-performing individuals. I still have impact with people. I still manage teams. So it kind of comes full circle. What I realize is that the thing that drives us when we're 20 years old or so, it may not be the exact job we thought it was going to be, but the thing that made that special still rides with us, and we're still able to take that through. So.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, all of you. And I think the message there is that you guys are at a stage in your lives where there's so much more to discover. There's so many different roads that we will go down throughout our lives. And so these individuals all become very successful in their individual careers. And I think they take non-linear paths to get where you're going. So kind of staying in this realm of jobs and the work that you do, Yolanda, in HR. You do, I'm sure, a little bit of interviewing.
Yeah.
When you interview former student athletes, what are things that stand out? And I think for the student athletes here, you guys have been student athletes most of your lives, been involved in sports, and I'm not sure you guys always appreciate the skills that you learn and the intangibles that you collect along the way. So, Yolanda, if you could speak to those things that you see that stand out for student athletes.
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of times when we get interviewers from all different sectors of the industry, but people say that athletes, former athletes, make the best salespeople. So we do get individuals that's athletic into this field. But when I interview individuals, it isn't really about not just about the industry experience, because sometimes we can hire at a level where we can teach the experience, but it's about the mindset. It's about the accountability. How do you show up? Are you professional? Have you done your research? Have you researched the company? Do you know anything about that? Are you collaborative with the conversation? How is it? What examples are you giving in regards to accountability? What have you done to collaborate with teams, teamwork? How has that been portrayed in your career, in your schooling, and what experiences do you have? So it's more than just about the experience itself, but it's how you show up, how professional you are, and what are your goals, and are you coachable? So it's a few things which I'm sure everyone has here. No.
Yeah, no. Does anybody else have anything to add to that question or anything else you guys when you're interviewing student athletes?
I think I'll add maybe just one thing. Yolanda hit on it, but I would just emphasize there are two things in my experience that you just cannot teach. I cannot teach intelligence, and I cannot teach work ethic.
Absolutely.
Everything else in our jobs, everything else in every job I've ever had can be taught. Mm-hmm. You have to come in and demonstrate that you have the work ethic, you have the commitment, and you have the intelligence to be able to do that job. Everything else that you can do or everything else you'll need to do can be taught. I don't think anybody, when they're interviewing student athletes, has a big expectation that you have 15, 20, 30 years of experience. You can't go as deep technically as Rich can or as Dwayne can, because they've been doing this twice as long as you've been alive. The expectation, I'm sorry, you said 40 years? I'm sorry.
That hurt. That hurt. Very hurtful.
I think, so to me, it's about the work ethic. It really comes down to that. That's it for me.
If you close your eyes and you think you've now graduated and you are interviewing for that next role, you have to win. You have to win the 3 hours. Going through the things we talked about this morning, the 10 chapters, going through and understanding that you have to practice until you can't get it wrong, because it is competitive. You have to go into it with a winning mindset, and you have to be prepared for that moment, because you're basically everything you've done in life gets you to that stage, gets you to that table. But then there's 4 people competing for one role. Win.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Rich, you are a former student athlete yourself. a Notre Dame alum. Can you talk about your experience as a former student athlete? What are the things that you take from that time as a student athlete and are still applicable in your day-to-day life today?
I would say just about everything. I think the discipline that you all show every day in your life, in what you do. I was not a scholarship athlete. I was in a fast twitch sport, in a slow twitch body. And so for me, it was all about discipline. It was all about making it happen and showing up every day and making sure that I could do it. Because I was not a scholarship athlete, and I in fact turned down a scholarship to pay my own way, which is not a conversation you want to have with your father. I would not recommend that. I had to work 20 hours a week as well, and then as a full-time student. So the discipline, the balance, the humility. The sport I was on, we have the fourth longest winning streak in NCAA history, 122 meets. And it was the last meet of the year, my freshman year, and I was a 4-year starter. We lost that meet to make it 123, so we missed that mark. The humility you have to have, and the coachability, which was mentioned here, to me, that is the most important thing that you take from this, because the greatest thing about sports is stats. The goal line, the basket, whatever, it's there, and it's not negotiable. So you've got to deliver. And you fail. You will fail. And it's okay. But what did you learn from that? So I would say those are the biggest takeaways for me that I apply every single day.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that myself included, and probably everybody on the panel, has made a mistake at some point in their career. When you touched on this a little bit when you spoke earlier, but if you guys could each talk about a mistake that you made early in your career that changed how you operate moving forward. Jordan, if you want to start.
I think for me, one of the mistakes that I made early in my career was an assumption that everybody expected me to always have the answer. I put a lot of pressure on myself to be the smartest person in the room, to have the answers to everybody's question, to anticipate what those are. And on the surface, you might think, okay, that's a really good thing to have. But in doing so, what I found is I would have a little bit of blinders on. I would find myself not really paying attention as much to my teammates around me. And what really changed for me is when I shifted my mindset from I myself need to be the one who has every single answer to how can I get the people around me together? That way the collection of individuals can come up with that answer together quicker. So it was shifting my perspective about me individually to how do I help all of the people around me. And it took me a little while to get that. And that was, I think, something that was a mistake that I made early in my career.
Awesome. Thank you. Yolanda.
I'll also say too, was a very important lesson for me is when I first moved to Atlanta, I had my first real corporate job. And so I come in and I work hard. I knew what I was doing. I was outpacing everyone. So I put in for a promotion and I didn't get it. And the person that got it wasn't as good as me. So I was like, well, I went to that leader, I went to their boss and was asking the question, well, what happened? Like, we've talked about this. This is the trajectory I wanted to be on. And that person had better relationships. And so what I've learned at that moment was it's not about just how hard you work or what you know, but it's about the relationships that you build in that atmosphere. So people have to be able to be comfortable to work with you. People have to know you. People have to know what they're getting into. And so that was a hard lesson for me. And when I try to tell everyone now.
Thank you, that's great. Anybody, Rich?
So 6% of all high school athletes will play a college sport. 6%. 0.5% will become an All-American. 0.1% will become a two-time All-American. My issue is not a single event, it's a continuous event. I never appreciated what I brought to the table. I didn't really value it. And when you think about the fact that you're in this room, the fact that you are an athlete, you're a student, and you're volunteering for this, you should understand the value you create for yourself. This didn't become apparent to me until I was president of a cell and gene therapy company. Cell therapy is the hardest manufacturing you could ever do. It's incredibly hard. It's increased cancer survival many fold in the last 10 years. And I was really frustrated. I was the president of the company, and I wasn't getting along with the chairman, so I called 5 people I worked with and interviewed them. And I asked them questions like, what's missing when you're in the room? And they gave me the answer. And I said, okay, what's missing when I'm in the room? And the answers blew me away. Unfortunately, that was like 5 years ago. So I would say, don't wait. Understand the value you create, and then don't compromise on the value you create.
Jordan, your title, the head of U.S. Commercial Strategy and Digital Transformation, it sounds a little complex. Could you talk about kind of the skills that are necessary for you to be successful in your day-to-day job?
I won't bore you guys with all the different functions that I have underneath me, because I think that's not the piece that's necessarily relevant. What I would say is that my team focuses on really one goal. And that goal is, how do we get the medicine to the patients that need it as quickly as we can? My team is the team that enables folks to do that. That's what we do. Now, what I would tell you, skills that are necessary to do that, and these skills are transferable, they're ubiquitous, they are independent of really any industry. And so I would really encourage you guys to think about these, not just to be a member of a commercial strategy and digital transformation or whatever they call me, but more, these I think are fundamental. The first one for me is around being able to simplify complexities. It's your structured thinking. How well can you take something that's really complex and distill it down into something simple that will help people understand it? Number 2 is around communication. How effectively can you communicate that simple thing or that complex thing? How can you make that simple, and how can you bring people around you together? Maybe the third thing, and perhaps the most important one for me, I learned this early in my career. It was this thing called a say-do ratio. How often do you do what you say you're going to do? It's a measure of trust. It's a measure of accountability. And it's really a measure of how often, when I give somebody something, are they going to actually follow through with it? Can I trust them to do it? I think those three things have been important on every team that I have been a member of, every team that I have led, and that's cutting across 4 or 5 different industries. I think industries change. I don't think the requirement of those skills necessarily changes. So it's those 3 that I would really have you focus on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can I just add quickly to that? Because you made a great point. When I've done interviews and people have asked about, them proceeding on and what does good look like and the person for in this role. And so I often say to them, people interview well, their resumes can look impeccable, but it's the people that do and have the expertise that they have on that resume that got them there actually can do those things. So when you give me examples about being accountable and how you were a team player, where you collaborated, how much you made in sales or how much you saved the company, I want that same energy when you come to work for the company. And so that's the expectation. So if you said something, I want to see you do that, similar to what he said.
Yeah, I think you're good. All right. This one is going to be for each of you. We talked about the mistakes that you've made and how we've learned from those. What is one risk that you've taken that has paid off, and what has taught you? What have you learned from that? Dwayne, do you want to start?
I guess so. I just got the microphone. A risk. So I go back a few years, and I was the head of marketing for North America, and we were launching 2 products. The launches were going really successful, and I'm sitting in my office, and someone knocks on my door, and they said, "We want you to move to the UK and Ireland." I said, "Absolutely not. I'm not moving. Why do I want to do that?" We talked about it. Next week, they came back, they knocked on my door. They said, "We want you to move to the UK and Ireland." And I said, "How come you want me to go to the UK and Ireland?" because every business in the world for these two launches was increasing by double digits. It was just except for one market, and it was going south. Guess which one that was? It was the UK and Ireland. And I said, why would I want to do this? We're doing great here. So they knocked on the door again, and they said, we want you to go to the UK and Ireland. And they said, how come? Why won't you go? And I said, well, I got my son's in high school. I don't, that's a challenge. He does his, just like everybody does his sports, has his academics, and he's doing really well. My wife's a nurse practitioner. She runs a clinic at LaSalle University in Newton. And they said, we can fix that. They said, that's fine. Come and go whenever you want. Come and go whenever you want. And so I moved to the UK and Ireland in a market that was declining rapidly. And it's either fix it or shut it down. And I jumped on I went the first day. Flew into London, got a car, went to Cambridge, and knocked on the door. They gave me the wrong code. I couldn't get in the office. Somebody let me in the office. And here I was, this guy from the US coming in to figure out what was wrong with the business. Big risk. Big risk, could I do it? Big risk, could I figure it out? Big risk was, could I get them to accept me? Big risk, could I understand and change how I think? Because the way you think, how, the culture, the mannerisms in the UK and Ireland are very different than they are in Boston, Massachusetts. And so I took the risk. I mean, end of the day, everything went well and life was good. And then the moment that I tested that the waters were tested on giving me flexibility was it was a Sunday. It was a Friday afternoon. Again, the CEO said, where aren't you going to the sports banquet? I said, nope, I can't go. He's a freshman. He's not going to get anything. I got to go. I got to be back on the plane. I got all this stuff to do. He says, no, you can't go. He says, you have to go to the sports banquet. And I'm in the back, and I'm sitting there on my phone going, doing email, not paying attention. And at the end of the day, long story short, my son got 3 awards as a freshman swimmer. And I came back and I said, number one, it was the right thing to do. Number two, it really tested the culture of the organization, that was feasible. And number three, the growth that I had, because the only thing wrong with the UK and Ireland was not the people, wasn't the talent, it was the culture. They felt like they wasn't supported. They felt like nobody had their back. They felt that nobody was going to help them succeed. You change that, and growth came, and it came really fast. So big risk for me in a stage of my career when everything was going perfect.
That's great. What I would say my biggest risk was, I was at Georgia Pacific early in my career. I had been there 15 years. I was happy. I had people leader roles. I've had individual contributor roles. I was currently in an analytical role, and I was feeling pretty good about it. A person that I had worked with previously that works for UCB was like, we have a role here dealing with managing international mobility, relocation, and our fleet management team. And I think you'd be great for it. My commute would be an hour and 10 minutes each way. I was like, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if I want to do a commute. When I lived in North Jersey, I used to commute from Irvington to Trenton because I worked at a TV station, or a cable TV station, for a little bit. And so I didn't want to be on the road that long, especially if anyone knows Atlanta traffic. And so I first declined her. Then she came back and just said, just do the interview, just hear about the position, and then we'll go from there. So I did. And I would say it was one of those situations where it was one of the best decisions that I've had. I've now been with UCB for almost 13 years. I've had a number of roles, and being connected to a company that works on improving the lives of the patients dealing with rare diseases and their caregivers has hit home with me, and just felt like the place I was supposed to be. So it's the biggest risk and the best one I've taken.
That's a great story. I do know Atlanta traffic, so that's brave. That's really brave. I was a director within the commercial organization at Abbott, and I had an opportunity to go to a startup company where I'd be the 14th employee. So you think about this company with hundreds, basically about 100,000 employees, and somebody says, hey, we're going to start a company, come over here. And going there, the first day in the office, and I'll put quotes around the office, we were in a strip mall. And when we wanted dinner, we went out the front door to the left, and then the next door it was a pizza shop. And so somebody's like, we're going to grow this company to be $6 billion in sales. And the risk I have consistently taken is a calculated one on how much can I learn? What can accelerate my learning? Because in our business, you start in sales, you go to marketing, you go back to sales, go back to marketing. And I started in the industry 10 years later than most people do. And I said, I don't have time. I need to figure this out really fast. That company, I was the 14th employee. 9 months later, we had 900 employees. That kind of growth is incredible learning. What can you learn? And if you're taking a calculated risk, that's really important. And I actually took a pay cut, and I've done that several times before, because the most important thing you can do for yourself, your family, your company, your community is learn as much as you can. Real learning, real lessons as fast as you can. And that was like a catapult for me. So I would say take that kind of calculated risk.
Like I said in my intro, I'm a finance and accounting guy by training. I spent the first 10 years doing that in long cycle industrial businesses, and so I'll maybe talk about the risk I took and put it into a sports metaphor, given the audience that we have here. So imagine you spend the first 10 years of your athletic life playing soccer, and you get to a point where you're very, very proficient soccer player. You're captain of the team. Everything's going well. Everybody's looking to you, and then coach or the athletic chair comes and says, you know what we want? We'd like you to go and we want you to play on the tennis team. I said, guys, I have no idea what you're talking about. I play with my feet. I don't know how to play. Use my hands in sports. I don't know how to do that. Not for me. Not interested. I said, okay, no problem. Thank you very much. A couple of years go by. They come back and they say, hey, you know what? You've been doing such a good job. You now are, leading the soccer team. We don't want you to play on the tennis team. We want you to lead the entire tennis department. We want you to recruit new players. We want you to develop the new training curriculum. We want you to do all that. I said, man, I have no idea how to play tennis. What are you talking about? Like, how can my skills as a proficient soccer player, how can that apply to a completely different sport? Completely different athlete, different phenotype, different skills. They said, look, we know you're going to be good at it. It's something, take a shot. I said, okay. I trusted my coach in that moment, and I went to what would effectively be called the tennis team. And so what I would say for me, the risk that I took was going into an area that I knew absolutely nothing about, leading a team of people who have been doing this for their entire life, trying to build relationships with them, build trust with them, and figure out how can I bring the experience that I had and make an impact on this new team. And so for me, I've been doing that for the last 3.5 years, and I'll tell you, it's the best job that I've ever had. It's the most learning that I've ever had, and I think that it's probably the most impact that I've ever had on any given team. And all of that, if you would have asked me, I said no once, and if you would have asked me whenever I took this job, I didn't think that I could do it. And so for me, that's without a doubt, that's the biggest risk that I've taken. And to land this one for you guys, what I would say is at this stage in your life, at this stage in your career, take the risk. Take the biggest swing you possibly can. I think, Rich, what you said is a really important one. Don't focus on title. Don't focus on anything else. Focus on skill accumulation. Focus on how much growth can I have? How much of a challenge can I take on? How uncomfortable can I get? I think the minute that any of you get comfortable in a role, you've probably stayed one season too long.
Thank you all. I'm going to ask one more question here, but I also want you guys to think. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to ask the panelists questions. So I'm going to ask one more here. I'm going to throw it out to you guys to ask some questions as well. So all of you currently work with companies within industry, within a focus of rare disease. What is something that surprised you most, Jordan? You came into this from a completely different sector. What are things that were surprising to you once you got into industry, so that we can kind of help demystify what it is the companies that you guys all work for do on a day-to-day basis?
I think for me, you guys had the panel right before this that had a combination of patients and family members, caretakers, et cetera. I think for me, going into an industry like pharmaceuticals, I lacked awareness of this industry and how much this industry genuinely cares about the people's lives that it impacts, especially when you think about a rare disease company. The rare disease company that I work for, we treat about 10 or 15,000 patients. And in some cases, some of the diseases that we have affect less than 3,000 people in the United States. And the thing that's crazy for me is there's a ton of people in my company who knows these patients by name. And the way that we follow our patients, the way that we help them, the way that we cheer for them is something that I completely lacked awareness of growing into this industry. I think, someone who grew up in St. Louis, I didn't have a ton of exposure to it. I've been relatively healthy for most of my life, so I've never necessarily needed to benefit from a lot of treatments like this. I think what I saw is what a lot of people see, which is in the news or on TV or something like that, when our politicians get involved and they paint one particular narrative about this industry. But without a doubt, my big wow, my big surprise whenever I got here was how much this industry is motivated by the impact that we can make on people's lives who are affected with the diseases that we treat, without a doubt.
Absolutely. My introduction to pharma, this was the first time we're coming to UCB, and it was a company that not only stood by a statement, but also walked the walk, walked the talk, as they say. And it wasn't just at higher levels or at mid-level, it was everyone in the organization. It felt like they hired the right individuals that were wanting to do exactly that. How do we improve the lives? How do we use science to do so? And so what shocked me the most too was the amount of passion as it relates to each individual patient. We have patients come in, and to your point, we know them, closely. We're in close relationships with them on a constant basis, and it's that drives the work that we do and continues to push us. So I didn't know that it would be such an impact to individuals, but also to myself. And when we have people that come in and advise us that, previously before they were on our drug, my son had so many seizures in a day, and now that they're on one, that it has gone down, or now they can actually go out in public. I had never experienced before. And so it was very impactful and surprising for me.
Let's play a game. Raise your hand if you've ever been a patient. We're all patients. And I think what gets lost and what's most surprising is that that's how we think every single day. Jordan talked about the intimacy that we have with the patients. This is such a driver. I've been in pharma for a long time. I've been in the rare space since 1994. Your parents probably hadn't even met yet. So I've got a lot of experience in this space, and it's an incredible driver for us. I've only been in my role for 2 years, and about a year into it, I said, what we need to do? We need to actually work with students who are interested in patient advocacy. And this January, earlier this month, we hosted our first, we called it Catalyst Advisors for Students, or Catalyst Advocacy for Student Scholars, CAS. And we hosted them in Miami in January, which was pretty cool. And we basically went over the whole, what is the industry? How does it work? So these are students who have a minor in patient advocacy. And we brought them in and we worked with them and gave them a role. The value we got back from that was immeasurable. Because what it really highlighted for us was this touchstone with the patient is so critical and so important. And I think that's one of the most surprising things that people experience is how much passion we have for the patient. And these students walked away saying, this is a really interesting opportunity to learn. We only had 12 students this year, but next year we're going to blow out the program. This was our pilot. So if you're interested in something like that, we're interested in talking to you about that. It's a great program, and we want your feedback as to how we can be better based on your experience working with rare patients.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. So well said. I'll end it with a story. I'm sitting in my office, and everybody has my cell number. I've been doing this a long time. I'm sitting in my office. I get a FaceTime. And FaceTime, I figure my son, my wife, my dad, because he can't use a cell phone, my sister, somebody. And I took the call. Comes up on the screen and change the name, call her Miriam. Miriam's on the screen and says, I got your name. I want to show you somebody. Puts the phone, shows me her 2-year-old son. Says the only person that can save my son's life is you. What are you going to do about it? I need access to a therapy. That's what we do. We put a team together for that one person, that one moment in time, to move mountains, to make sure that that little boy has an opportunity. Every time we go to a particular conference, I see this little boy. That's what we do. That's why we do what we do. You got to love what you do every morning and be ready to attack, and you got to believe what you do matters, and it can change the world. And I think that's what's cool about this industry.
Thank you all so much for that. All right, who's got a question? No, somebody's got one. All right, go ahead.
So, Mr. Daly and Mr. Hume, you guys talked about learning accumulation, especially early in your career. This could be for the whole panel as well. Can you guys kind of talk about some of the entry level or the low level roles that you guys had that feel like really contributed to the level that you're at now?
I think for me, every role that I've had, I tried to have one eye kind of looking backwards. What did I learn in that previous role, and how can I do that? And one eye looking forward. Where am I going with this? Focusing on connecting the dots or horizontal, like to me, there's two ways you can think about your career. You can think about going like vertical, where I spend a lot of time in one particular area and I become an absolute expert at that one thing. Or you can go horizontally and you can say, okay, can I get good, become more of a jack of all? Can I get good at those? Early in my career, my focus was I want to go horizontal. I want to understand different pieces of the business, different pieces of the industry, such that I can then, whenever it's time for me to go vertical or whenever I'm asked to get put into a particular role, I have a good enough understanding of, what's on Yolanda's radar, what's she worried about whenever she gets up and is focusing on her day, when she's thinking about recruiting talent, what's on Dwayne's mind or on Rich's mind whenever they are leading an entire organization, trying to think about that. I always try to say, what's the perspective that I can get? And so for me, early on in my career, it wasn't actually about nailing the perfect role. It was about how can I get in, how can I learn something, how can I make an impact, how can I connect that to something else, and then I get on as quickly as I can.
So as a scientist, I try and make formulas out of everything. So it's really important to me because it simplifies my life. So if I had known this earlier in my career, I would have done it more. But one of the most successful things I think you can do is pick where you think you want to land in 20 years. And just agree that you have no idea what that might be like. But then find 5 people who had that job, 5 people, and go and ask them 3 questions. What experiences have you had? What expertise did you gain from those experiences? So then you can figure out, what do I have to do, whether you go up or you go vertical? That's really important. And the most important question is, what is your life like now? Because if it's a bad life, you don't want to go there. Get like a sense of balance if that's important to you, or you like work. I love to work. I just love to work. So I think those are the most important questions you can ask as you think about what you might want to do. And it might take you to a different industry, right? And you might come back, right? It might make you a bartender for 5 years when you get a degree and your mom's out of her mind because you're a bartender, right? So I think there's lots of different things you can do, but think about a structure you can approach that's flexible enough to give you that opportunity. And I think that's a phenomenal question. Thanks for asking.
Dwayne or Yolanda, you guys want to share any?
Oh, I got it.
What I'll say is, and that it is a great question, one of my first roles was worked in a call center employee service rep for individuals of the company. And it was normally a lot of payroll questions or tax questions, but sometimes we would get elderly individuals that had no advocate. They might not have any kids, they might not have any nieces or nephews, and they were having a problem with Cigna. They were being overcharged for their medications, and they would call us and just would rant about that, but at the same time needed help doing that. And so I learned very early to be advocates for individuals that can't be advocates for themselves. I am very passionate about helping people that aren't in the room, to provide knowledge for individuals to connect those things, to provide opportunities for individuals that may not have known those things. So I really enjoy doing that. So if you have the opportunity to advocate for someone, please do so. Lean in to see where you can be of help, because that has definitely been one of the things I've learned early.
Yeah, it's where, I started this morning. Our challenge in life is to live and to lead, to help others rise up and help others be the best that they can be. When you do that, you grow, they grow, and you will continue to have, just exponential success. It's a key learning, I think, at least for me personally, and not just my career, but more importantly, my life.
We have time for two more. Go ahead. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Cooper Rusk. I'm the rep from Toledo.
Thank you, Cooper. Go ahead.
Robert Wallen, I'm the rep from Notre Dame. So we all value culture from the teams we're a part of. So what specific things do you bring as an individual to kind of empower your teams? And what skills do you think we can apply to our leadership skills and how we lead our teams?
I'll jump in. Leadership and culture are critical, and you got to understand the culture that not only that you want to build, but also the one that you are going to join, and that's going to help you be successful. A toxic culture is horrible. But when I look at culture, the starting point, at least for me, is culture is really based on a pyramid of trust, radical candor, radical optimism. It's based on how you communicate. It's based on accountability. And believe it or not, it's hard to have a great culture if you don't have success, And to me, those are the foundation blocks. Now, when I was in the UK, we moved a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right based on where they were and where they needed to go. But to me, those are the fundamental building blocks of a great culture.
I agree 100%. I think when you think about what you all do every day on the field or on the playing surface, whatever it is, accountability is sometimes seen as an ugly word. But when you're done, did you miss that block? Did you, not hit the basket? Did you, whatever sport you've got, taking that and leveraging that into the workplace is so important. Own it, whatever it is. Own the success, celebrate it. Spread success as far and wide as you can, and failure, own, and don't spread. And culture is really about trust. I love what you said, Jordan, the say-do ratio. It's a measure of trust. And as I think about the folks I've worked with, trust in a culture is so important. You do an annual review for your employees, and I fight with my HR lead. I'm like, why do we even have trust down here? Because if I don't trust somebody, they're gone. We're not saying, okay, you didn't meet expectations on trust. You're out. You got to go. So there's a minimum amount. So I think that there's a lot that you all do every day, and the balance that you bring. And I think, Yolanda, when you talked about, demonstrating delivery upon delivery as a student, as an athlete, and balancing that, I think there's so much value you can help folks understand.
Absolutely. I would add situational leadership, knowing when to lead, knowing when to support others, and knowing when to fall back. And so having that perspective and the different roles that you're in will helped build those relationships I talked about, but also show that it's not just that you're thinking about yourself. And so how do you collaborate with others? How do you show support? How do you take the initiative? How do you raise your hand for things that people may not want to raise their hand for? Be proactive in that approach. And so you are all leaders in this room. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. And so how do you use that to your advantage?
Very good. Cool. Any final, Robert, true or false, you took a taxi from South Bend to Chicago to catch a flight? True. Okay. False.
Wow. That is awesome.
One more question. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
My name's Phil. I was gonna ask about maybe some risks you guys took that maybe didn't work out so well, and ones that did, and what you learned from that, and how that contributed to where you are.
How much time you got, Fulton?
I think risks that didn't pan out, I don't think it's that black and white. If you approach any particular role or any particular experience and you define success or winning that moment as, did I learn something here? Did I gain something? Did I give something? It's really hard to have an experience that does not pan out necessarily. Now, I think often in business, like in sports, there is always a winner and a loser. That is the definition of what you guys are playing at the end of this. I think in business, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Life or situations don't always result in a win or a loss. And so for me, I think it's shifting my focus from, is it a win or is it a loss, to, did I do everything from a process perspective? Did I do everything from a journey perspective to be able to take something away from this experience? So I think just even the mindset of that question is one that I would push you to think differently on. It's not about things that don't pan out. There's something you can take from every situation, even if it's, hey, you know what? I just learned a great way not to do this.
Great point. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, from a risk perspective, I think that, thank you. It isn't, there are times when things didn't work out, but they actually helped me grow. And so if you're have an opportunity to be at a company where you can actually fail. And so, and UCB was one of the first companies that I was allowed to fail. One of our pillars is space with consistency. They allow you the space to do the things that you want to do. Be consistent about it. It has to align with our corporate strategies. But if you fail, it's not the end of the world. So people aren't afraid to take a leap on something or try something out. And so there's been plenty of pilots. There's been plenty of things that we said, well, let's try here in a small market that didn't pan out. But that just showed us we weren't in the right direction at that time. We needed to pivot, or we need to add something to it for it to be successful. So it's all a learning. And so to Jordan's point, as opposed to think about it one way, just whatever you decide to do, take the risk, and whether it's successful or not, there's something to learn and gain from it.
So I like playing games. So let's play another game. You have $10,000 to invest. You have two choices. You can invest in oil wells or biotech. Which one are you going to invest in? Oil wells, put up your hand. Biotech. The success of a drilling for oil is 30%. The success in biotech is 6%. Of the 6% that get to market, 2/3 don't make back the money it costs to get them there. We fail. A one-word description for biotech and pharma is failure. We fail all the time. The challenges are there, and what can you learn from it? And love the points you all are making. These are lessons. I'm really open about this. I've been fired 4 times. 4 times. I turned around a division of a very large pharmaceutical company in less than a year. And they came to me and said, we just don't think you fit our culture. Okay, great, thanks. But the opportunity is to learn and to actually contribute and create value for patients. And, stand on your principles. And if it doesn't work, move on. There's lots of opportunity out there. And you're going to fail. And we accept that. And that's what Yolanda's point about the first place she worked where she was allowed to fail. We have to allow people to fail. It's really, really important. Lives are on the line. They really are.
Only thing I'll add is even if you bring a product to market, you launch it, you get access for thousands of patients, or in our case, sometimes hundreds. When you break it down, there are pieces in there that you could have done better and you probably didn't do as well as you should have. And so you're constantly looking, it's how can I get better? How to do it quicker, better, smarter, faster. I can do this differently and we're going to get even more successful. So it's okay. I mean, I probably fail more than I succeed. But it's just how you approach it and say, winning is forward. You learn, you grow, you move.
You have one more question?
Yes, sir. For Mr. Daly and Mr. Clark, I was wondering, you both talked about.
Introduce yourself, sir.
Oh, sorry. I'm Tatum Johnson.
Hey,
I'm a rep from Colgate University. You both talked about advocating for patients and prioritizing patients. So I was wondering, what moment in your career did you realize that advocating for patients is more important than your personal mission?
So I was launching a drug for diabetes. This company I talked about, we had 14 employees, went to 900. And we were at a key opinion leader meeting. These are the best doctors in the US in diabetes. And we're talking about, there's three products are in the market. We're the third entrant. If you're the third entrant in a pharmaceutical product market, you're dead on arrival. It's over, right? You're not going to do anything. However, this product seemed to be better, and it was trending up. And I said at one point, I said to the key opinion leaders, physicians, okay, not business people, physicians. And I said, here's the point at which we'll pass these other two products and we'll become number one. And a physician in the audience on the panel said, I don't like it when you badmouth other products. I said, I'm not badmouthing another product. It's just data. It's just a fact. You see the trend. He said, well, I still like that product. They think that product, your competitor, the number one competitor in your space is better than you. I said, that's a great opinion. I said, I don't agree or disagree, but the market is saying something different. I said, in fact, my mom is on that product, the number one product, not my product. And he laughed. And there are 11 other physicians around the tables, and I said, I'm sorry, is that funny? And now my boss is in the back of the room. And my boss is like, you just told these KOLs your mom's not on your drug. You can see his eyes like, oh my gosh. And he said, I think it's just funny, the key opinion leader, that you don't have your mom on your product. So I looked at him, I said, three things I think about here. My mom has a trusting relationship with a healthcare practitioner. Right? I'm not a physician. I can't write a prescription, so that's number two. And number three, God help me if I need the 12 prescriptions my mom's going to give me to make my plan for the year. I said, I don't care. And for me, my boss was like, and everybody else around the table, the key opinion leaders, were all like, wow. I'm like, I'm not here to sell my mom over lunch that she should be taking this diabetes medication. That's what matters is what is most important is what's most important to her and her healthcare practitioner. I don't sell people my drug. I say, look, this is the availability. This is what it is. And if the doctor chooses, for me, that was the pivotal moment. And then another one of the reasons why I asked the question about are you patients is Rob and I have a common story here. In 2001, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and it fundamentally changed my life. And I've been in the business for 10 years already, and that was a shift in how I saw the patient, an absolute shift, because I was one and I would be one for the rest of my life. So we look at it that way, and so I hope that's helpful.
I'd like to say that there was like one epiphany, but it's just the combination of moments, combination of minutes. When the mom calls, it's when you have gotten to know a family and they invite you to the funeral. It's having a discussion and understanding how can we get better by understanding it from the family perspective, the those that are diagnosed with a rare disease perspective. It's all those things accumulate, and also personal. I mean, we all have family members who have had, been sick, they've been in the hospital, they may be on chronic or may not be on chronic therapies. And so it's all those little moments that just start to build your awareness to say, there's a bigger mission on this planet, and why we're here than just saying, hey, I got to make a financial number. There's a bigger mission that why we're here. And I think that's part of why you say, hey, this is what we do, and this is why we love what we do, and this is why we believe it changes the world, and this is how we can lift up people. So to me, it's just accumulation. It never ends. Those moments that you have. It's launching a new product and going to a conference and seeing 100 people in tears because nobody has represented them. Nobody has provided a therapy that's going to help improve their loved one's life. That's cool.
I want to close by thanking all of you guys for being here. You have extremely busy schedules, and for you to take the time to be here, impart your wisdom. For the student athletes here, I think some of the big takeaways for all of you that our panel has shared, your mindset, how you show up, your work ethic, your discipline, your accountability, and your ability to be trustworthy. I think the thing that they all have in common are all things that are within your own control. They're things that you don't need to be the smartest, the fastest. The things that we're talking about, the common threads that have allowed these individuals to continue to be successful, are things within our control. And so I want to thank all of you again for being here. Thank you guys for the questions. To give them a round of applause for being here. Feel free to come up and engage with them. I'm sure they'd love to meet you guys. I know a number of them will be staying with us for the networking lunch. So I want to thank you guys all for the time and being here, being a part of this and supporting Leadership Conference. So thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Enjoyed it. It was great. It was great.
Maybe it was at a board meeting with someone. We've been on Thank you. Here we have a planning.
Indeed we do. Indeed we do.
All right, so we are gonna shift focus. We're gonna go into lunch now, so y'all, I'm sure, are hungry and ready to eat. We have a ton of people that are here to share their knowledge with you. Take advantage of this time at lunch, ask them questions, get to know them. You never know where these connections can take you. So I sent a message on the group meme, and there is a list of all the tables. So find your name on which table you are. And then underneath the table, there's also, it tells you like Studio 1, Studio 2 or 3, and then Studio 4. So Studio 2 and 3 is where you guys had breakfast, so it's the bigger room, and then the other studios are on like the other side of that. So you'll go back downstairs, find your table. If you guys need help finding your name, don't see your name, something like that, you can come to me, go back out to the registration table. They have the printed out copies out there too. But you guys can head on down once you do that. Yep.